Okay. Can see them. Okay. I'm clicking open the now. Let me see. Um, can we continue with our lesson? Can we continue with our lesson? Can I just get some feedback from everyone who's present? Okay. All right, so this is our first lesson on the 1st of June for grade 8. And our skills focus is on listening and speaking, but generally I want us to listen and pay careful attention to the story that I'm going to share with us today. Okay, our lesson objectives. At the end of the day, you should be able to exercise good listening ability. More than anything, I want you to take notes. So have your notebook ready. I want you to take a few notes so that you can jot down the key points or the key events in the story that are going to be important when you're answering your questions later on. And also, you're going to be able to show understanding and comprehension of the story that I'm going to read with us today. Okay, so this is our story. It's a short story and it's called First. So let me just make sure, okay, that I read it with us today, okay? Okay, it goes like this. First, you ought to know that I'm only 14. My mother points that out often. I can make my own decisions when I'm old enough to vote, she says. Second, I should tell you that she's right. I'm not always responsible. I sometimes take the prize for grade 8 dog. Take last weekend, for instance. I was staying at my dad's and I decided that it was time I learned to drive. It was Sunday morning, 7 a.m., and I hadn't slept well. I had been I'll tell you about in a minute. Well, nobody was up yet in the neighborhood, so I thought it couldn't hurt to back the car out of the garage and drive around. The block, to drive around the block. But dad has a clutch car. The R on the shift handle was up on the left side, right next to the first gear. I guess you could guess the rest. Dad's always been understanding. He didn't say, okay, little Miss Know-it-all, you can just spend the rest of the year paying off. Which is what Mom would have said. Instead, Dad worried that Dad worried about what might have happened to me. And that made me feel more guilty than anything. I think he'd been a better number one caregiver. But I can't say things like that to Mom. To her, I have to say, but Mom, that place is closer to school. I could ride my bike, to which she replies, Emmeline, you don't own a bike, remember? You left it in the yard and it was stolen. And you haven't got the patience to earn the money to replace it. Okay, I want to read that story again for all of us. And I want you to pay careful attention because after this, we are going straight to the questions. But then I also want, if possible, can someone just tell us what the story is about? And who can guess what is going to happen? Okay, but first, let me read it again. First, you ought to know that I'm only 14. My mother points this out often. I can make my own decisions when I'm old enough to vote, she says. Second, I should tell you that she's right. I'm not always responsible. I sometimes take the first prize for grade 8 dog. Take last weekend, for instance. I was staying at my dad's and I decided it was time I learned to drive. It was Sunday morning, 7 a.m., and I hadn't slept well. I'd been thinking about an argument which I'll tell you about in a minute. Well, nobody was up yet in the neighborhood, so I thought it couldn't hurt to back the car out of the garage and drive around the block. but Dad has a clutch car. The R on the shift handle was up on the left side, right next to the first gear. I guess you can guess the rest. That's always been understanding. He didn't say, okay, little Miss Know-it-all, you can just spend the rest of the year paying it off, which is what Mom would have said. Instead, Dad worried about what might have happened to me. And that made me feel more guilty than anything. I think he'd been a better number one caregiver, but I can't say things like that to my mom, to mom. To her, I have to say, but mom, this place is closer to school. I could ride my bike. To which she replies, hey Milene, you don't own a bike, remember? You left it in the yard and it was stolen. And you haven't got the patience to earn the money to replace it. Okay, so that is our first story. Um, that is our first story. So I want you to guess. Just tell me what you think the story is about. If I can get some interaction from the participants. If I can get some participants to tell me what the story is about. Natalie. I'm going to give us a few questions if there's no one who wants to participate as yet. I'm going to give us a few questions that I want us to go through together. And as we go through them, I want you to answer them. So this is your first class activity. So the first question, how do you think the narrator shows how she feels about her mom and dad? So I want you to describe here how you think that the narrator shows that she feels about her mom and her dad. So your answer is going to be descriptive and descriptive of her feelings or emotions. Okay, number 2 says, why does the narrator feel guilty? So that is your second question. Why does the narrator feel guilty in the story? So this should be quite an easy one. The third one says, how old is the narrator? And I also want you for the fourth question to describe the narrator's tone. What describe the narrator's tone? Number 5, what does the narrator's mother think about her? Okay, so those are our 5 questions. I'm going to give us, I think 5 to 10 minutes will be enough to answer those questions, or we could discuss them here in the class. And I think it would be better if we discuss them together. What do you think? Okay, right. I'm going to give you a few minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, just to answer these questions. Think about them. Try and remember from the reading of the story. I read it twice, so it shouldn't be difficult to remember what you heard. But more than anything, your time starts now. Natalie, Avive, um, can we get some of our participants? Guys, we have to understand that our lessons are more fun when we participate. It's very important that we engage with one another so that we may be able to go through the lesson together and interact. It's very important. Okay, our 5 minutes is through. So is there any way of knowing whether we need more time or should we just continue with the lesson? Yes, Avive? Avive? You guys need more time. Okay. I'm giving you an extra 5 minutes, okay? And then we're continuing with the questions. So I'm going to go through the correct answers with you, but then if I don't get anything back from you, if you don't tell me whether or not you are here and you're willing to participate, I'm going to give you extra questions for homework. Okay. Okay, we have run about 3 minutes left. Okay, thank you. I see. Okay, it's about Emily. Let me see here. Share the slide with you again, Aviwe. Let's go to the previous slide. Okay. Aviwe, can you see the previous slide? Aviwe, can you see the previous slide? Okay. Aviwe says Aviwe. Right. Aviwe, I don't want you to read the story with me, but I want you to listen, okay? So because you're late, I'm going to read it for the last time, and then we can rush off to the questions. Natalie, I want you to forgive us because our viewer says he's late, and I just want him to catch up quickly. So let's go through the story again, okay? Okay, it says, first, you ought to know that I'm only 14. My mother points this out often. I can make my own decisions when I'm old enough to vote, she says. Second, I should tell you. Okay, see here, this is a message. Let me just read the message quickly. All right, thank you, Natalie. I should tell you that she's right. I'm not always responsible. I sometimes take the prize for grade 8 dog. Take last weekend, for instance. I was staying at my dad's and I decided it was time I learned to drive. It was a Sunday morning, 7 a.m., and I hadn't slept well. I'd been thinking about an argument which I'll tell you about in a minute. Well, nobody was up yet in the neighborhood, so I decided it couldn't hurt to back the car out of the garage and take it for a drive around the block. But Dad has a clutch car. The R on the shift handle was up on the left side, right next to the first gear. I guess you can guess the rest. Dad's always been understanding. He didn't say, okay, little Miss Know-it-all, you can just spend the rest of the year paying it off, which was what Mom would have said. Instead, Dad worried about what might have happened. Dad worried about what might have happened to me, and that made me feel more than any. Okay, it says that made me feel more guilty than anything. I think he'd been a better number one caregiver. But I can't say such things like I can't say things like that to mom. To her, I have to say, but mom, that place is so closer to work. I could ride my bike, to which she replies, Emmeline, you don't own a bike, remember? You left in the yard and it was stolen. And you haven't got the patience to earn the money to replace it. Okay, Aviwe, so that is our story. Sorry for the rush, but then I can't waste a lot of time because we have to go through the rest of our questions. Um, so I want us to, I want to actually go through the questions together. I mean, the answers together. Natalie, I like your questions. I like your answers. I mean, most of them were correct, and I'm glad that you are listening and paying attention very carefully. Okay, so let's go to the first question. It says, "How does the narrator show? How does the narrator show how she feels about her mother?" Remember, the question is, how does she show? And she does a good job of showing this by actually contrasting the two. He shows the difference that no, my mother is very impatient with me and thinks that I am irresponsible. She contrasts the two reactions from both parents and the two personalities from parents. But the dad, on the other hand, is a caregiver and he's very caring and is very concerned and worried about her. So, um, the first the first answer is that she contrasts the two. Okay, she shows a great difference between the two parents' reactions. Okay, question number two says, why does the narrator feel guilty? And I like your answer, Natalie. Is that she feels guilty because her dad was worried about her when she stole the car and something happened to the car, you know. And sometimes we tend to feel bad when we make the people that we love or people who care for us feel bad, and that's exactly what happened to the narrator here. Our next uh, question says, how old is the narrator? Okay, that was easy because it was first the first thing we mentioned in the first sentence when you read the story. Next, I want you to describe the narrator's tone. Okay, so I see here. Okay, and that is not wrong, by the way. Nettie, I like your answers that she was sad, she was feeling guilty and upset, worried. So the tone was actually very emotional, okay? So she was very emotional, and she was very familiar with us when she spoke to us. She spoke about her emotions, and she didn't distance herself from us as she was telling us the story. So there was her tone. And lastly, I want you to describe or tell me, what does the mother think about the narrator? And this is a good answer, by the way. The mother thinks that the narrator is careless. Yes, the narrator showed a bit of carelessness. Cannot a bit is an understatement. She showed quite some uh, carelessness and irresponsibility. So she was quite irresponsible and careless. Correct answers, yes. So that is our class activity for the day. If you can, on the chat, can you just tell me what other things you noted from the story? Just share with me other few points that you noted from the story when I read it. And also, it could be any detail in the story. Just tell me, and then we could go discuss it together. And if here, okay, I give you an opportunity to answer more questions, because Natalie did this in 5 minutes, like literally 5 minutes. And if you can have more questions, Natalie, Naviwe? Here are homework questions, okay? I want us to do the answers to them tomorrow when we meet again. Is it fine with you? Okay, let's go through them together. Let's go through them together, and then tomorrow we'll start our day with the corrections. Or if we have time today, we'll go through the corrections. And tomorrow, we'll start with our new lesson. Okay, question number 1 says, what is the main conflict between the narrator and the mother? What is the conflict about? Now, when we read the story, or when we heard the story, we noticed that there's a bit of a conflict between the mother and the narrator than the father and the narrator. So I want us to talk about what the narrator's conflict with the mother was about. But more than anything, I want you to tell me specifically, what are they fighting about? What is the problem between them? And number 2, I want you to guess. Okay, I see Natalie already guessed. Yeah, I want you to give me a more detailed answer, okay? And it's there in the story, okay? Let me see what you wrote here. Okay, you said she crashed her father's car on Sunday. Okay, that's the correct answer, but I want it to be more detailed. So tell me what most likely happened to the car. Okay. The third question says, the first person point of view in the story. I want you to tell me or choose one of the following options. What does the first person point of view in the story do? Does it hide the narrator's feelings? Does it show the thoughts and the personality of the narrator? Does it make the narrator seem cold and distant? Or does it let us see the thoughts of all the characters? Number 4 says, I want you to choose any one of these as the most or the correct answer, okay? Number 4 says, how many characters are in the story? 5 is a true or false question. So the question says, the quotation marks around only suggest that the narrator thinks 14 is an old enough age for some things. Questions. If you don't have time to write them down, take a snapshot or a screenshot quickly. And I need the answers by tomorrow morning when we meet again.